Welcome to the Successful Thinking Podcast, where I will share with you the elements for a successful thinking process, and we will talk to people who have a successful thinking mindset. YHELLO, welcome back to the Successful Thinking Podcast. Today I have an amazing person with me. He's a Redbull athlete from Switzerland who got paralyzed in a gymnastics accident back in 2010. He helped to launch the 2019 Wings for Life World Run, and on Sunday, May 5th, he made history as he got up from his wheelchair and walked over the start line. Today he's part of the Paralympian team of Switzerland and is a true inspiration to a lot of people, myself included. He's David Mzee. David, welcome to Lisbon. How are you?
I'm fine, doing great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you. I did not know much about your story, but when I was reading the people who would be here at the Web Summit, and I saw your profile, I really said I want to meet you, not only because of your inspiring story, but also because I want to share your thinking process to people. So going back in time, at the moment of the injury, what were your thoughts?
Well, my first thought was when I fell in this, when I landed badly in the foam pit, I felt like I hit my head, and my first thought actually was, I hope it's not another concussion, because I had 3 or 4 of them, and I was hoping that that was not the case right now. But in the second moment, I couldn't move anything, and I was in absolute panic. So hard to describe. I never felt like that before or afterwards. It's like a big black hole that's swallowing you, and it's so overwhelming, so hard to describe. And so in the first moment I was thinking what I thought, and in the second actually I wasn't thinking at all. It was just panic.
And how was it? Because then time, it looks like time goes forever at this moment.
Yeah.
But I can imagine it was even more difficult when your doctor said you cannot walk again.
Yes and no. I mean, it was really strange because when it happened, as soon as I got out of the panic, well, I think even during the panic I knew that was serious trouble. I couldn't move anything. I had major difficulties to breathe in this foam pit. So I was in such a panic because I knew that something bad had happened. And also when they tried to get me out of the foam pit, I told them to not do so and to not even come into the foam pit and move, because if anything moves in a foam pit, everything moves. So I didn't want anyone in it, and the reason was because I knew if I moved my neck even more, I might cause even more injury. So I was quite aware of what had happened. Not the exact diagnosis, of course, but I was well aware what had happened. And therefore it was not like the doctors came and told me and the big shock came, but that was during the panic and right afterwards. The strange thing was that I had the possibility to make a decision. Because most of the time, I mean, if I would have stayed in a panic, I'm sure I would have passed out. And then you might wake up next day after the operation and people tell you what happened. But since I was that conscious all the time, I know exactly what happened. And I was even telling police the number of my sister to call her. And I was well aware until the operation started. So I had this unique possibility to make a decision whether I want to stay in this panic or get out of it. And because I could do that, it feels like some part of the process of accepting what happened took place in that very moment.
And what do you think were the key elements of your personality that allow you to realize, I have to make myself a decision here?
Good question. So I looked into psychology for the last years, and one of the things I concentrated on was personality traits, like the big 5 aspect scale. So I'm trying to go through the 5, or if you take the subtopics as well, 10 personality traits. Which one would help in a moment like that? So it wouldn't be openness, maybe conscientiousness, extroversion, probably not, agreeableness, neuroticism. So I think one good thing is that I'm not high in negative emotion. I think that could overwhelm you even more in a situation like that. Maybe more of it would have helped me to not even do it, but I did, and I didn't see the danger in it. And what came out, we know. But otherwise, I'm not sure if it's a personality trait that really helped me. But my training. So I did martial arts, and we often trained at the border of panic. It's not exactly panic. It's we need to think about the English word, but it's when you start tensing up a little bit. And we didn't want that, so we trained at that border to get used to a lot of stress, get used to not having full control, and to concentrate on yourself. Once you manage that, it really helps you also in martial arts. And then it's hard to find a way to get again into that state. So we'll take a second opponent, maybe a third opponent. Then you give them weapons. And as soon as weapons are involved, you're again, even if it's a knife that is just pretending to be a knife, it's a wooden piece. If you really think it is a knife, you start tensing up again and being scared, and in an extreme case even panic. But we wouldn't go that far. We just train at the border of not being relaxed anymore. And I think that helped a lot in that very moment in the foam pit.
Thank you for sharing. So I know you embarked on a trial, and there were also two other people, Gerda and Sebastian, who also had injuries, terrible injuries. And you embarked on this trial with the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne and Lausanne University Hospital in Switzerland. So can you explain a little bit which treatment is this? How is the process?
Well, the process is that on the level of the spinal cord, where you have the representation of the legs, you put an electrode. And if you stimulate with that electrode at high enough amplitude, reflexes are evoked in certain areas of the leg. I mean, it's not super specific that you can target the muscle, but you can target the muscle group. And we were good enough to stimulate specific enough to get me walking, and the other participants as well. And I mean, walking is really a big word. It's not hands-free, except if there's a lot of body weight support. But still, we got the legs moving enough that I could go forward.
So at Wings for Life World Run back in May 2019, you said after the race, it was overwhelming. My maximum was 6 minutes of walking in the clinic on smooth surfaces and without the weather that was at the time. And now, at the time, you did 30 minutes, of course with 5 or 6 breaks, but it was a record for you. I saw the video, and that's what I was telling you before, that it really touches. What were your emotions and your thoughts during that walk?
During the walk, I hope it's soon over. I mean, it's really hard to walk, especially in those conditions. I wasn't sure if my fingers would stay warm enough, so I was wearing gloves for some time, and I took them off. It was way too hot, and I was covering not that much of a distance in that time, but for me it was really, really a lot, and especially going down and afterwards up again. And I mean, in the beginning, there were so many people passing by, cheering. You didn't feel the pain. But once you were alone, was the camera team still there, and a good friend of mine was shouting from time to time, "You can do it!" And I had to laugh, and it took the energy even more. And I was like, "Shut up!" And at the same time, I was super happy he being there, and also Janine at my side. It was quite something. It was quite something, and I remember in the end being happy that it was over and what we've achieved. But also I started enjoying the snow, because it felt like this confetti rain when you did something big, and I just turned it around in my head and made it a big celebration.
I think it's really nice what you're talking now about also the people around us, and that's where my next question will go through. Just before, I want to read something, because indeed these kind of processes are very personal, and we take many times many things very personal, but having those next to us are very important. And my girlfriend, she shared with me a story that she saw in a conference about psychology. They were talking about the placebo effect. So basically there was an exam, and they split the kids into 2 rooms. In the first room, they told the kids, "You are the best. You guys are the best students. We believe you'll most succeed in this test." Second room, they said the opposite. They said, "Yeah, guys, this is very difficult. Don't stress if you don't pass. We are not expecting you to pass."
Okay.
At the end, most of the people on the students on the first room, they passed, and on the second one, they did not pass. So, in comparison to your story, when you were told by the doctor that you will never walk again, how do you think we should embrace the influence and the comments made by others, family, friends, doctors, whatever, towards our mental empowerment?
Whew, a big question, goodness. I'm not sure. I mean, the way I work, if you tell me it's impossible, it makes it attractive to me. So it's like, let's go for it. I mean, that's a good challenge. Do the impossible, right? Yeah, and on the other hand, sometimes it's good if someone tells you, you know what, this is really difficult to do, and think twice whether you want to do that or not. So I'm not sure what to say about it.
Is both sides.
Yeah.
Having the notion of the reality, because that brings, like you said, the awareness of the situation, but then also the other side. If it's impossible,
Yeah.
it's attractive, because
Yeah.
then I want to reach it. I want to make the impossible possible.
Here we go.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
The two sides.
Yeah. And also, you know, it's how would I put it in words? There is this nice saying that people didn't know it because they knew it was impossible. And then a guy came who didn't know that it was impossible, and he just did it. So I really like that mindset, because it twists it once again and gives a new perspective on it. And I mean, in the example of the school, it's quite easy to judge which one is better, no? It's like, okay, if we can encourage them and they're doing good, perfect. But I can think of situations where encouraging people might be a bad thing. You know, if you just don't have what it takes to do what you're supposed to do, you might bring yourself at risk and other people around you if you think, oh no, that's going to work out. I mean, yeah, I think you can come up with examples for that, and I think it's important to see both sides. And
I agree.
Yeah.
David, when I was younger, about 15 years old, I had an injury. Not same level. I was an injured playing football, and I had to be on a wheelchair for 6 months. One thing that got me during that time was how fragile we became towards others. I remember I was young, I had friends, let's call it, that they were pushing me and playing with me on a wheelchair. And how do you think we should mentally deal with this?
Well, as a society or as a person being in a situation like...
As a person, but also as, can be both.
Can be both. So for society, there is this beautiful documentary on Netflix. There is a guy who doesn't have any arms.
Okay.
And I think he was even adopted through a family. And I think especially if you adopt a child with a physical impairment, I mean, generally as parents, if your child has problems in what way ever, you'll try to support it, and you'll try to do all you can to make life as good for the child as possible. But sometimes it's not good to overprotect, and what this father did is impressive. I think it was the father. When the kid said, well, I want to climb this tree exactly like my brother does, and the father said, yes, go up, but if you cannot come down, it's your own problem. I don't know, I don't remember exactly, but I think he was up there for an hour or two because he didn't know how to get down. But I think that's how you learn how it works, and being overprotected is a really dangerous thing, especially in the long run. And I'm happy that my accident was after me growing up. I mean, I was 22 when I had the accident, and I think that was good because I was treated normally, and I think we should do that with all the people, and that would be my thoughts on the side of society. Now, for an individual being in that space, I heard a Canadian psychologist talk about how to deal with those situations in regard to not bringing excuses for stuff that is not related to your impairment. So he was talking about his daughter even that had a terrible illness, and also as parents seem to be quite difficult to find the right balance. I mean, if the child has a chronic disease and it's like, I'm too tired to go to school, is it because of the disease, or is it because kids sometimes don't want to go to school? So on that side, I think it's important to really be honest to yourself as good as you can, and demand the same from the people around you, so that you can differentiate what really is the problem you have and what is just you trying to find excuses.
I like that way of looking. David, before finishing, if you had someone now in front of you that just got paralyzed, what would you say to him or to her?
No, it's hard because many people ask me, if there was someone paralyzed, what would you tell him? But you ask specifically. I mean, I'm imagining a person right in front of me, freshly injured. I'd be like, well, what do you need? But maybe that's not your question precisely, is it?
Is exactly how can you make them have your thoughts and like take that decision that you said?
I think in that moment, and we can rephrase the question again, but I think in that moment I'll go there and say, I'm here, I'm with you, and we'll take care of this. So probably I would say don't move, because I'm aware that that might make things even worse. Yeah, that would be it in that very moment. And now in general, I'm not sure if you can make someone think like you do. And I'm not sure if that's the way to go. And as we talked about personality traits, those traits are quite different in humans. And what helped me personally was seeing especially people in wheelchairs doing sports and doing it on high level and competing. And not being an athlete in a wheelchair, but just being an athlete. And that inspired me, and I think that's something you can do for other people. Just be there and give them a real person that they can see and talk to and feel that, well, life is still worth living. So I guess that's what I would try to do.
Then, David, to finish, if you had to think in one word to better define what is successful thinking, which word would it be?
Oh, the first one that comes to my mind is honesty. And
Why?
I think honesty is key to be in peace with yourself, the way you are, but at the same time improving whatever needs to be improved. And there is always a long way to still improve. And of course you need the stability of being happy with yourself from time to time, and like, oh, well, I'm not doing that bad, I'm not just a piece of shit. But on the other hand, it's like, well, there's still ways to improve. And I think if you don't have the honesty to really look at it, and on both sides, so to say that's good and that's not good, to judge yourself, then that world stays closed for you. So I would say honesty is one of the key words that comes to my mind.
David, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
And I hope you enjoyed, guys, and see you on my next episode.